Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of Need I Say Myrrh, the Christmas podcast. And today I am delighted to be joined by James Brixey. Hello, James.
Hello, it's good to see you.
Uh, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? Where are you? And what do you do?
So I'm James. I'm currently living in Southampton. Before that, I was at Warwick for far too long. I did my undergraduate and a PhD, all a bit much. Right now, I'm working as a ministry intern for Christchurch, Southampton, an FIEC church just north of the University of Southampton. And before, I'm the son of the Brixies, and we were in Thailand for 10 or so years.
And do you want to describe for those who are listening what it is that you are wearing for this festive podcast?
Yes, so I was told to wear something festive and realized that I am just in just a regular shirt that I wear. And because I'm currently in the church office, I went around and searched for anything I could get my hands on in the hope of finding a discarded Christmas jumper or a Santa hat, and instead found some rather flashy Christmas lights, which are now draped around my neck. So that's quite nice.
So we've got some questions that we're asking all of the people on this podcast. So we'll go through those and see what your thoughts are on Christmas. And we'll begin with question one, which is, what is your favorite Christmas decoration?
This, I think, of all the questions, was the most difficult, but I have settled on it being a completed Christmas tree. Okay, so I've heard a rumor. I have no idea if this is true, but I like to think that this is true. The Christmas tree, whether or not it was originally intended to symbolize this, can be taken to be the tree of life. And then there's the star on top, telling of the newborn king as to the Magi. There are the lights, the light to shine into the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. And there's the red bauble. So probably actually the red bauble, because of course this thing that I heard from a friend of mine back at Warwick, who's a professor of statistics there, so it must be true, was that the red baubles are, of course, the fruit of the tree of life, which through Christ's birth we now have access to. So I think it has to be a completed Christmas tree. Also, so I said I grew up in Thailand, so we often didn't have a big Christmas tree because you couldn't really buy them necessarily. They weren't culturally available. Um, and one time, even before then, my mum is Spanish, and we spent Christmas in Spain. I don't know quite why. I was 6 at the time. And so instead of having a physical Christmas tree, my parents took some green paper and some red paper and some yellow paper and cut up this into the shape of a Christmas tree, and then hung the baubles at the end and cut the yellow paper into the star on the top. And I have this distinct memory of that. So the point is that the Christmas tree doesn't need to be the physical entity, but the thing it symbolizes.
Yeah, okay, that's a fun memory. And I hadn't heard all of that symbolism of the tree before. Certainly the idea of the fruit of the tree of life with the different baubles. I'd never thought of that. But now, like many of our listeners, when I next see a Christmas tree, that will be in my mind, which is a good thing, isn't it? A good thing to remember.
I have no idea if it's true or not. So all the mail is coming to you. So if this is anecdotal, nothing like a correction to get the feedback.
And I should say that we do welcome correspondence on this podcast. If anyone wants to get in touch at needisaymyrrh@gmail.com, needisaymyrrh@gmail.com. And the person against whom you are complaining is called James Brixey. That's Brixey. Yeah. Do you have views on when Christmas trees should go up?
It depends where you are. In America, they are allowed to go up today after Thanksgiving. In England, we don't celebrate Thanksgiving, for better for worse, probably for worse. So we get a different freeze, which is, I think, we get to put them up after what I like to call a National Burn a Catholic Day, which is, of course, remember the 5th of November. The 5th of November is when I think you're allowed to start, not just put your Christmas tree up, but anything Christmassy shouldn't come before then, but also needs to be done in time for the CU carol services. So take it easy on your students who are celebrating Christmas a bit early because they really have two Christmases at the end of term and then at Christmas itself.
But 5th of November, that's the earliest that I've heard someone say, I think. So you could be starting a new trend. Shall we move on to talk about food? And what I'm most interested in is your least favorite festive food.
This is an easy one, and once again, we'll get all the hate mail. I don't like a mince pie.
Wow, that's quite a statement.
I know, it's terrible. I love almost everything else. I'm not the world's biggest fan of sprouts, but I enjoy them. You know, they're sort of fine, and they're cruciferous vegetables, which are very good for you. Lots of excellent stuff there. But a mince pie, not only do I think it's not great, it also has two other disadvantages. One is that it is disappointing. It just could be something better. And then second of all, it's a weird promise, right? I'm promised mints, and I'm a very literal person. As a child, I thought they would contain mint, and I didn't really have them as a kid because I just never bothered picking one up. Then Thailand for 10 years, so we didn't have them there. Then I came back to England, was told, "Oh, it's a mince pie." I'm like, "Mince meat? That's unusual." Bit into it, and it there was no meat in there, and it and what was in there isn't so much bad as just a letdown. It's like the first time you try Turkish delight after having read Narnia.
Well, yes, yeah, yeah. Certainly, I can agree that Turkish delight is uh,
Is a letdown.
yeah, well, it's more than a letdown, isn't it? It's an abomination. But mince pies, though, that's that. I think again, you're going to get lots and lots of hate mail, James. This is what we love on this podcast. Really controversial guests. But we should move on before you say anything else critical of mince pies, and we should talk about Christmas Eve traditions. What are your Christmas Eve traditions, James?
Well, they are actually very simple and quite food related as well. So especially since returning to England, as I've mentioned, my mum is Spanish, my dad is English, and so on Christmas Day, as a family now, we will have a roast dinner with a chicken and the roast potatoes and everything else. We don't go for turkey. That's I think also overrated. But on Christmas Eve, we will have a roast salmon. So it will be like uh, slightly different roast potatoes, often a roast vegetable melody with bell peppers and a couple of other things, and then the delicious like whole salmon. And over those 2 days, well, no, we'll have a Christmas Eve lunch, but then from Christmas Eve in the evening through to the eve of Christmas Day itself, we'll essentially only have two meals, really, only two proper sit down meals. The Christmas Eve huge salmon, and then the Christmas Day roast dinner, which will often be eaten a little bit later than lunchtime because I have five siblings, and with eight of us, trying to open presents takes half the year. Um, and so we'll just have a late dinner slash lunch slash evening meal, sort of a brunch, but between 12 and 6 in the evening. And that will be our sort of thing. But the roast salmon is the Christmas Eve tradition. And then we'll just put on a bad film, not a bad film, but so last year I got choice of the film, and so I chose the excellent Chicken Run 2.
Good film.
Yeah, good film. My family disagree.
Wow.
So, no accounting for taste.
Obviously, the film related question I want to ask you is Muppet Christmas Carol. Where do you stand on that?
I am a bad person. Um, in fact, I have not seen it.
You've never seen it.
I've never seen it.
How have you got this far in life without?
I know, right? There is no accounting for taste. I will try and watch it this Christmas, but I just haven't. We never had it physically growing up.
Yes, I suppose we're part of the generation where we actually grew up with physical things that you put into things to make them work. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then since then, it just hasn't come up. I know my view on it though. I know my view. My view on it is that it is an excellent film and it's good because so the Muppets Christmas Carol works because Michael Caine treats the Muppets as fellow actors, and the Muppets Treasure Island works because Tim Curry treats himself as a fellow Muppet, and that is the discourse. That is apparently true, and I will take that as read until I watch both of them. Also, as a young child, sort of below 8, the Muppets weirded me out. They were slightly uncanny valley. Now I see that I was foolish and I have put away my childish ways, but at the time I was just a bit internally squishy about them.
I definitely recommend giving it a watch at some point, and then you can get in touch with your views, which we can share at a later point, or when we get to series 11 of this podcast, and I have you back on, you can share your views then. But we should come to the last question, which is what is your favourite Christmas carol?
Hmm. So this is by far my favorite of the questions and the one that I have the strongest view on. So I love Christmas carols. I think Christmas music is excellent. I love all of the classics. O Come All Ye Faithful, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Joy to the World, O Holy Night. All of them. They're all. I can think of very, very few bad Christmas carols. But there is one that I think is absolutely underrated, criminally underrated, and always badly musically set. So I don't think the tune is bad, but it always has either a piccolo or maracas and is never sang in what I consider to be a mature way. I think you're cottoning on to what it is. I think that the best Christmas carol, no, not the best, my favorite Christmas carol and the most underrated is See Him Lying on a Bed of Straw. Hark the Herald Angels Sing gets close, but um, I can't sing it without tearing up, and I want to explain why I love it. So I'll read it, or heck, if you like, I'll sing some of it for the listeners. See him lying on a bed of straw, a draughty stable with an open door. Mary cradling the babe she bore, the Prince of Glory is his name, and that's wonderful. That gives us
Mhm.
the setting, but it's verses 3 and 4 that I love. So the chorus is great. Oh, oh, now carry me to Bethlehem to see the Lord of love again. Identifying who our Savior is. He's the Lord. He's the Lord of love. Just as poor as was the stable then, the Prince of Glory when he came. There is something glorious about that baby. But in verse 3, angels sing again the song you sang. Sing the glory of God's gracious plan. Sing that Bethlehem's little baby can be the savior of us all. So we're told that this baby is there for saving us. And that, of course, you find in Hark the Herald, born that man no more may die, born to raise the sons of earth, born to give us second birth. Wonderful stuff. But it's verse 4 that makes me cry. Mine are riches from your poverty, from your innocence, eternity. Mine forgiveness by your death for me, child of sorrows for my joy. I practiced reading that a couple of times before this to make sure that I wouldn't tear
Mm.
up too much. But I cannot think of another song that ties Jesus's death to that baby in the cradle, right? There are, Hark the Herald gets close, born that man no more may die, born to raise the son of earth. It tells us what he does, but it doesn't tell us how he does it. This one does. And for that reason, I think it's criminally undersung. And it really, really captures just some of the joy of Christmas. And then, of course, you go back to the chorus, and then you want to see him right. Oh, now carry me to Bethlehem to see the Lord of love again. What's that Lord of love? The one who's going to die for us. It's wonderful.
Mhm. Yeah, you've made a very good case. We sing it every year, but I do think it that yeah, you saying it being underrated, partly because of the settings that we're used to hearing it in, and it being associated maybe as being something more for like children or something. Do you have like a favorite recording of it?
I've searched for them. I haven't found one, sadly. Maybe we can convince Michael J. Tinker to do a nice, slightly soulful one with him and the guitar.
That would be good. I think that would work well. Well, thank you for joining us, James, and we hope that you have a very Merry Christmas.
And a Merry Christmas to you too.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas.